Ben somehow imagined a strange picture. He was standing in a stadium packed to capacity, waiting for the main event of the year, and suddenly, the announcer announced, "Now $10 million in new currency will be dropped from the airship directly into the crowd." Ben's breath caught in his throat. He could already imagine grabbing a wad of cash that would change his life, but then he looked closer. The airship hovered directly above the VIP boxes. Billionaires, politicians, corporate moguls in luxury suites just opened the windows and started raking in cash, even before it went down. They ran to high-end kiosks and private shops in delight and bought up everything they had at the old prices. They got rich instantly. They used the fresh money to buy real goods and assets before the rest of the audience even realized what had happened. What about Ben? Ben was sitting in the cheapest seats, where his nose was always leaking from. As the wind carried the pitiful remnants of bills towards him, the kiosk owners had already realized that a disaster had occurred. Everything is sold out. They had to pay exorbitantly to buy a new one. Prices have skyrocketed. By the time Ben reached his first $100, a hot dog that used to cost $5 was now worth $15, and the branded cap has disappeared from sale altogether. Ben didn't get richer. It was just diluted. Important people received goods with a huge discount due to fresh money, and Ben, an honest hard worker, paid a hidden tax. This is not a fantasy. This is the exact mechanical reality of our economy. This explains why grocery bills have doubled, why housing has become unaffordable, and why the rich play a completely different game than everyone else. It's called the Cantillon effect, and understanding it is the only way to stop being that guy who always has a nosebleed. My name is Ben, and I spend too much time studying charts to understand why hard work has stopped producing results. If it seems to you that you are running on a track whose speed is constantly increasing and your salary is standing still, subscribe and like it, because today we are exposing the invisible mechanism of inequality. Most people don't understand what money is. They think that money is neutral, that if the government prints $1 trillion, then everyone's bill will increase by a tiny percentage and prices will simply rise. But it's a fairy tale. Back in the 18th century, a banker named Richard Cantillon realized that money is like water. They flow from the source, and where they end up in the first place is more important than how many there are in total. He noticed that people close to the king, bankers, landowners, merchants, became rich when new gold entered the treasury, and farmers and workers just got poorer. Today, this understanding is more important than ever. The king now is the Federal Reserve System, and the new gold is a digital loan, which is called quantitative easing or stimulus. And it gets to the largest banks first of all. When the central bank decides to print money, it doesn't send a check to your home. He creates $1 trillion and buys bonds from major financial institutions. Money enters the system through banks, and the first recipients, bankers, corporations, asset managers, are starting to play in a market where there is more money and the prices of what they want to buy, stocks, luxury real estate, raw materials, have not yet had time to rise. Let's look at the numbers. Imagine that $1 trillion of new loans have been poured into the system. A large investment firm gets access to this money at almost zero interest. And while the others haven't figured it out yet, they're buying up 5,000 houses, huge tracts of land, and shares in public companies. They are buying assets with today's money, but at prices 3 years ago, just because they were standing next to the printing press. This is called asset inflation. This is the main reason why the gap between rich and poor has become a canyon. If you already own stocks and real estate, the Cantillon effect is your best friend. New money raises the price of what you already own. But if you live by your work, if you trade time for money, you become a victim of delay. As long as money flows from banks to corporations and only then reaches salaries, they leave an inflationary trail behind them. And that's where the scariest part begins. By the time your employer decides to raise your salary, the housing market has already exploded because large funds have bought up entire districts. The stock market is breaking records, and you get the money last. You get them with the lowest possible purchasing power. It's a game of musical chairs where the music ends and the working class realizes that all the chairs have already been sold to hedge funds 10 minutes ago. That's why, since 1979, labor productivity has increased by more than 60%, while real wages have increased by only 17%. It's not just corporate greed. This is a structural result of the Cantillon effect, which directs purchasing power not into salaries but into assets. Psychologically, it kills. You look at your savings account, which seems to be growing, but you feel poorer because a house, a normal car, education for children, all this is slipping away faster than you run. The Cantillon effect is a hidden inflationary tax that the poor and middle class pay. They spend almost everything on food, gasoline, rent, and when prices soar, they suffer the most. The rich, who spend only a small part of their capital on everyday life, hardly notice this. Together with the Veblen effect, which we have already discussed, this creates the perfect financial storm. The system steals your savings through Cantillon, and society forces you to spend the rest through Veblen. But Ben isn't telling this to make you depressed. He wants to give you a plan of action. You can't stop the flow of money, but you can change your place in the queue. The biggest mistake is trying to accumulate wealth in a currency that is constantly depreciating. If you keep your money in cash, you're standing at the bottom of a waterfall. Inflation just washes away your labor. To win, you need to act like the rich. Become an owner, not just a breadwinner. Invest in assets that float on the waves of the printing press. Realty, broad index funds, raw material, something that cannot be printed with a button. When the money supply grows, the price of such assets rises with it. By owning them, you insure yourself against salary depreciation and more. It is necessary to understand the strength of fixed-rate debt in the context of inflation. If you take out a fixed-interest loan to buy a growing asset, you are actually selling $1. You return the money to the bank, which will cost less than the money you took today. The system is designed to punish depositors and reward debtors who own assets. It seems unfair. This is unfair, but this is reality. Don't let your work go to waste because you're the last in line. Learn, invest in safe assets. Stop being the one with the nose running. And one last thing, your income should not be fixed. If you get an hourly or annual rate, you lose because your salary is the last to rise in price. You need to be in high-demand areas, have rare skills, or, ideally, own a business where you can raise prices as soon as your costs rise. Your work is a commodity. Don't let it depreciate. Stop being the one who pays full price with depreciated money. Become someone who owns assets and benefits from financial storms. Now you have the knowledge. You can stay in the stands or buy your way onto the field. If this video explains something that has been tormenting you for years, please like it. Subscribe to Ben to learn how to hack the system and stop paying hidden taxes. See you in the next video.